gotta hit the road, I gotta move along, 'cause the time it's moving on. Well, there's no time that I waste with you. Gonna hit the road, just passing through.
So what I got going on here is the bottom of this window. Because there's no trim and it's getting mitered, then it's not going to have horns stick out like a normal window would be. And if you can see right here, this is meant for this stool to come in and kind of make a seal almost against this window here. Not a tight seal, but it helps. So I had to notch the underside of this so that it fits in there, and then notch the corners out so it would go back where I wanted it. And this, I just softened this edge with a sander, just softened it a little bit. And because of the way things are situated with the window, I've got to put a series of blocks underneath, which I'll screw down into this 2x, and then I leave them just a little bit shy of what I need, and then I can take and put a shim in there to get that exactly where I want it, which is not much, maybe 1/8 of an inch, but that gives me a way to adjust this slightly. So I'll screw these blocks in with 3-inch screws, and that gives me something to fasten this to and hold it in place. The walls are going to come in horizontal. So they're going to come in and they're going to miter together like this. They miter there, miter there. And so that will be the finished look. It'll be nice, clean, sharp. So underneath, it'll be the same thing. Above, on the top, it'll be the same thing. It'll just all be mitered in so that it comes to a nice point like that. No trim. when you're ripping a miter on a table saw, if this thing isn't held down flat to the table really good, your miter is going to be crooked. So I put a stop on here. It's going to make it a little tougher to push it through, but it's going to keep it held down to the bottom to the table, which is what I have to have. I don't know what I was thinking, but I forgot to put the 4th hinge in while I was cutting the hinges. And as I'm hanging it, I'm looking at it and saying, something doesn't look right. And that's what it was. So I have to cut it in now after it's hung. But I learned a trick on this. Just because it was a pain in the neck to use the chisel, I'm going to show you that trick in a minute. And by the way, if you want to cut hinges in by hand, it's always best to have the square corners. But I had these hinges laying around, so I decided to use them anyways. All I'm doing here is I'm going around it with a knife. And I'm doing it while it's screwed on, just so it makes it easier. Now I have the outline of the hinge. But here's what I just figured out. Instead of doing all that chiseling, I can run this Multi-Master. I wish this blade was sharper, it's not. But I can run this Multi-Master in and cut that right out. Battery went dead. Doing this, you want to go easy because you don't want to poke out the other side of the door. Doesn't work too bad. All right, now I got this door hung. Didn't come out too bad. So the boards will come into the side now and miter into that like this, so that there's no trim. There's no trim on there at all. And the door is just basically flush with the wall. Now, on the other side, you have to have door stop on here. When you close the door, it would go against here. So this I just squared off, because when I bring this wall in here, I'm going to take a piece of 3/8 thick board and put it here, and it'll miter back in. So there won't be any trim on this side either. And that creates the door stop, as well as making it so you have no trim. So that's why I did what I did. Yes, it's a lot of extra work doing it this way, and you don't have as much flexibility, but that's the look we're going for, so that's what we're doing. So you can see that's what the joints are going to look like, hopefully all of them. Nice and sharp. No trim. Now the reason I'm going 7-8 inches off the bottom is because I want to do all this wall before I put the floor in. And then once the wall is done, I can put the floor in, then I can custom cut that bottom piece to fit in there tight, because there won't be any trim down there either. So this is what we're shooting for right here. Let's try this. Oh, it's gonna be. And then how's that cut look down there? Reasonable? All right, so we got the first course around the bottom. We set it with the laser, as you can see. So hopefully things will stay reasonable as we go up. Inside corners look okay. Outside corners look okay. So we're off. The reason why I'm using two different saws is one flips one way and one flips the other way. So I couldn't make this cut here with this one, but I can with this one. But I can't make this cut with this one, but I can the other one. Okay, so there's my first one around the window. It's a little tougher because you're going with two different angles. Plus you got a joint here. And the reason why I have a joint here is because it would be very difficult to make this cut along here as a plunge cut. It's very hard to plunge cut on a 45. So by putting the joint here, which is hardly noticeable, I could come in from either end, as you saw, and I could get things a little cleaner. People have asked me how I like this Ryobi gun. It works good It's a love-hate thing because there's a little trigger thing here. And if you press that and don't hold it, the light starts flashing like that. And it won't shoot while it's flashing. It takes about 10 seconds for it to stop. But if you pull the trigger and just hold it, well, usually, that's why I'm saying it's a love-hate thing. If you press it and hold it, the light comes on, then it'll shoot. If you hold it too long, then it starts to flash again. So when it's flashing, it won't shoot, and it gets a little aggravating sometimes. Other than that, the gun works pretty good. If I thought there was a way of disabling that thing, I would. Here's a little trick I learned over the years. Sometimes you have to put a long screw in a hinge to pull the jamb back, especially on the top upper hinges, because the weight of the door wants to sag it. You can put a screw in like this, or you can put a longer screw in the hinge itself. The problem is if a painter comes along and he takes the hinges off, that screw may not end up back in where it belongs, and therefore the door will give you problems later on. So you loosen up one side of the hinge, you put a screw in behind the hinge, and then even if the painter does take it off, that screw remains. So I put a screw in this behind this hinge right here. Now I can flip this hinge back, put the screws in the hinge, and everything will be fine. Now in this case, it really doesn't matter. I just wanted to show you this trick, because when I do this other side of this wall, I'm going to have a strip coming down through here that will miter into this wall. And that'll become the door stop, and it'll become the other side of the miter for this door. So this screw will be covered anyways, but I figured I'd just show you how to do that. This door, since I hung it, and I'm mitering in from either side with the jamb, sometimes you can push things just a little bit, and that's what happened, and this door started to sag. It started to hit up in here, which meant you need to pull that hinge back. I could have just tightened down on the screw that was there, but I wanted to show you that way. So now you can see it's got a perfect margin up through there. And that allows you to make all kinds of adjustments, and you don't have to worry about anybody messing them up like the painters. They sometimes do that. They'll pull the hinges, take the screws out, and whatever goes back in goes back in. I'm going to show you another trick that I learned. When you run a router, there's a right way and a wrong way to go. The blade is spinning like this. So you want to push it into the board and go this way. Because if you go this way, it wants to skip. Now, having said that, what I'm doing is I'm starting on the wrong end, and I'm just skimming along the edge. And what that's doing is taking any fibers that are trying to split out off from the other direction. And once I get down through, and I only have to go 1/8 of an inch or whatever, it doesn't matter, then I go back and go the right way. So you're going to watch me do it wrong, but there's a reason why I'm doing it wrong. It also takes some of the strain off the router rather than doing the full cut in one shot. I could do it twice going the right direction, but going the wrong direction, I'm helping to keep it from splintering out. That's why I do that. Another little tip, when you're cutting a miter or 45 on your chop saw, you want to make sure that you push it down really flat on the table. Otherwise, you won't get a square cut. Sometimes you get a board that has a slight cup in it. It becomes really difficult to get a really good cut on that. And sometimes I'll recut it 2 or 3 times. That's why I generally like to cut the miter first, because then if I have to adjust it, I'm not making my board too short. Also, when you're joining boards in the middle of a wall, I like to miter it, and that makes it just a clean edge. So you can see I can kind of sand it and make it fit so it looks reasonable. But when you do that, measure your board so that you're more than halfway or most of the way to the end of the board. And that way when the other board covers over top of it, it's got good solid nailing behind it. So just keep that in mind. It didn't come out too bad. Little bit of a space right here because this board I don't think was put on quite square, but I can live with that. We got spaces here and there. There's nothing I can do about it. I can't, you know, even if you bought wood from the lumber yard, you're never going to pull things absolutely tight. It's not going to happen. So there's what the door looks like with no trim on it. I don't have a doorknob on it and I don't have door stop on the other side yet, but that'll come when I do that work on the other side. But it came out all right. I like it. Well, I'm going over with this piece here over top of the window and the door. So this is mitered, this is mitered, this is mitered, this is mitered, this is back mitered, and this is front mitered. So let's see if we can make this all work. That piece was probably the toughest piece in the whole room because it involved the door and the window. Plus it had all that steel behind it, which was holding things out. So it was a little tricky, but it looks okay. don't know how well you can see it, but that's the tray. That's two sides of it. The point split off, so I'm going to glue it back on. Okay, well, I'm gonna end this video now. I got this room done with the exception of the floor, which I'm not gonna do for now because I don't want the floor getting beat up while I'm doing other work. So you can see that I left the bottom board off. Because when you're putting down flooring, you absolutely have to have expansion. If I brought the wall all the way down to the floor, I would have to leave an expansion on the flooring. Then I would have to cover it with trim. This way I can put the flooring down, give myself a 1/2 inch expansion all the way around, then put the bottom board on the wall and there is no trim. Just like there is no trim around the doors and windows. It just like flush to the wall. The windows of course being reset, but same thing. Everything is mitered and there's no trim and there won't be any trim. The only exception of the trim is that top board going around. But I did that because I wanted a tray effect. So that board, I guess, could be considered trim. I could have brought the last board up and made it all tight and not had trim up there, but I wanted the tray effect. So that's what I got there. So, as you can see, everything is as clean as I can get it. There's a little more sanding to do here and there. Like there's a little spot of glue there, whatever. But essentially the room is done. Now this is the way the bathrooms and the main living room, dining room, kitchen are going to be done. We're thinking on the 2 bedrooms, we're going to do what I call in-siding, which is Adirondack siding but used inside. I don't know if any of you recall when I did Cheryl's She Shed, that's how I did it there. The difference is I'm going to plane the wood so that it's smooth instead of rough sawn. This is a good start. This is the music room. There'll be a bunch of shelves on the wall. There, you notice there's no closet in this room. There's going to be a bunch of shelving on this wall to put equipment on. There's going to be a bench along here that I can set the sound system on, the mixing board, maybe a computer, recording equipment, all that stuff will go along here. And probably a piano will be set up, will be in here, and the sound system will be set up. I have 3 sound systems, so I can set one up, and if we want to practice, we can just plug in and go. Then there'll be The stuff that we take for gigs will be set aside and just ready to walk out the door with when we need it. So that's the plan on this room. So there you have it. That's how to apply wood paneling without trim. Now, a lot of people say, why didn't you use V-groove instead of just putting it tight together? My answer to that is everybody uses V-groove. I don't want to be like everybody. I want something different. So we didn't do V-groove. I could have V-grooved this, but I didn't want to. We talked about nickel gap, and I put a couple of pieces together. Mrs. W didn't really like it. She wanted it tight, so this is how it is. So we'll be continuing on with this wood, and we'll be putting videos out about it as we go. It's going to be quite a challenge in the big room. There's a lot of windows and a lot of doors and stuff, but that's okay. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.